You're dressed like you're in first class. Too bad you're not. That's what the flight attendant said to Alana Brooks, moments before mocking her in front of the entire plane for simply asking for a cup of water. Alana, a young black woman with style, poise, and quiet confidence, had no idea that her outfit would be weaponized against her. But what happened next stunned the entire flight. Because sitting just a few rows ahead was her brother, an off-duty FBI agent. What began as a moment of public shaming turned into a viral reckoning that shook the airline industry and sparked national conversations about dignity, bias, and what it means to show up for those we love. This is not just a racist story. It's a turning point. A quiet act of courage that echoed far beyond 30,000 feet. Watch until the end, and if this story speaks to you, drop a comment with your city and time, subscribe for more real justice stories, and share this video with someone who needs to remember, dignity doesn't ask. It demands. Miss, this isn't a fashion show, it's an airplane. Sit down and stop making a scene. The word struck like a slap across the aisle. Alana Brooks, 26, had boarded the flight with nothing more than quiet excitement and a sharp sense of style. Her cream off-shoulder blouse framed her glowing skin, and the high-waisted jeans hugged her frame modestly. She wasn't seeking attention, she was simply herself, elegant, modern, confident. But in the narrow, judgmental world of coach seating, her very existence became a target. She had barely taken her seat when she reached up to press the call button. The cabin was warm, and her throat was dry from running to make the gate. The flight attendant arrived, flashing a mechanical smile. Her platinum blonde hair was chopped into a stylish bob, and her voice carried a hard edge under forced politeness. Yes. Hi, Alana said, offering a soft smile. Could I get a cup of water, please? The attendant's smile didn't waver, but her eyes narrowed. Water is served after takeoff. Please be patient. I understand, Alana said calmly. It's just, I'm feeling lightheaded. I ran to make the flight. The woman's expression shifted from stiff to outright dismissive. Everyone has problems. We're not a personal service. Maybe next time we're something practical and get here earlier. Alana blinked, stunned. Around her, a few passengers began whispering. One woman 2 rows back raised her eyebrows. A man across the aisle scoffed under his breath. Alana's face flushed with embarrassment. She sank back in her seat, lips trembling. This wasn't about water. It was about being seen, and judged. She hadn't said or done anything provocative. But now she felt like a spectacle. As the plane began taxiing, the whispers turned to awkward silence. Alana stared at the seat in front of her, unsure whether to cry or speak up. But something inside told her to hold her ground. Minutes later, the plane leveled out in the air. The beverage cart rolled out, and Heather the flight attendant returned, serving rows in a mechanical, controlled rhythm. When she reached Alana's row, she didn't make eye contact. Would you like something? She asked flatly. Alana looked her in the eyes. Water, please. The attendant smirked. Oh, now we're thirsty again. She poured with exaggerated slowness, sloshing water into a plastic cup and handing it with a slight shake of the wrist. Careful not to spill it on your little designer top. The man behind Alana audibly said, What's her problem? But before Alana could respond, a firm voice echoed from the front of the plane. Heather. Step away from that passenger. Heads turned. A tall black man with a trimmed beard had emerged from the front row. He wasn't just a passenger. His jacket was unzipped just enough to reveal a bold, unmistakable emblem, FBI. He walked down the aisle with controlled urgency. His gaze locked on the flight attendant. What exactly do you think you're doing? I was just following procedure, Heather stammered, her confidence cracking. She asked for water, the man said, voice calm but dangerous. And instead you mocked her, repeatedly. Passengers looked around, eyes wide. Who are you to tell me? she started. I'm her brother. And I'm also a federal officer. So if you'd like to continue this conversation, we can have it on the ground, with your supervisor, and possibly a civil rights investigator. The plane went dead silent. Heather stepped back, face pale. The beverage cart rolled forward, unattended. The captain's voice suddenly broke over the speaker, shaky and stiff. Flight crew, please report to the cockpit. Now. The tall man turned to Alana, who looked up at him in a daze. You okay? She nodded slowly. Her voice cracked. I didn't even say anything. I just wanted water. He reached down, gently squeezed her shoulder. You didn't have to say anything. You were loud enough just by being you. The passengers around them began murmuring in support. A woman handed Alana a napkin. Another tapped her shoulder and said, You handled that with so much grace. When the plane landed, the crew was asked to stay behind. Passengers were instructed to remain seated while an internal airline matter was addressed. Alana walked off the plane with her brother, a quiet dignity restored. Cameras caught footage from other passengers. Within hours, her story was trending, #justice at 30,000 feet. She didn't want revenge. She never asked for attention. But in a world where silence is often mistaken for weakness, her stillness became a storm. Alana had always loved fashion, not to attract attention, but to declare her presence without speaking. In a world that often tried to define her worth for her, her style was her voice. Every outfit was a battle cry wrapped in silk and denim. But now, at cruising altitude, her blouse and jeans had become ammunition for judgment. She sat in her window seat, legs crossed tightly, trying to steady her hands. She sipped the water Heather had begrudgingly handed her. The taste was metallic, but what hurt more was the smirk that came with it. People were staring, but not with scorn anymore. With empathy. A man a few rows ahead gave her a subtle nod. A young girl across the aisle mouthed, You're strong. Alana smiled faintly, grateful, but it didn't erase the ache. Her brother Jordan remained standing near the cockpit, arms folded, watching everything. He wasn't posturing, he was protecting. He knew the look in Alana's eyes. He'd seen it when she was 10 and a teacher called her too bossy. He'd seen it when a mall security guard followed her around because she was walking too confidently. And now, here it was again. That same flicker of quiet shame trying to crawl into her bones. Jordan spoke in hushed tones to the captain, who looked visibly uncomfortable. The co-pilot joined them, and Jordan gestured subtly toward the back galley. It was clear something more was unfolding. Meanwhile, Alana opened Instagram out of habit. She found herself tagged in a story. A short clip, shaky and dim, but unmistakable, Heather leaning over her, saying something sarcastic. Jordan entering frame, flashing his badge. The caption read, This flight attendant messed with the wrong one. Already 2,000 views. Alana's heart pounded. She hadn't wanted to go viral. She just wanted water. She just wanted to be left alone. But maybe this needed to be seen. Heather finally reappeared from the back galley, her face pale, her smile gone. She avoided eye contact, walked quickly down the aisle toward the cockpit, where the captain pulled her aside. Their conversation was hushed but intense. The captain's brows furrowed, his hands moved quickly. Alana glanced at her brother. He was texting now, fingers moving with precision. A moment later, she saw a flight attendant in another uniform walk up from the rear of the plane. She looked confused, then stunned as she was handed something by the captain. A folded slip. A document. Heather's hands trembled as she read it. Passengers didn't know what was happening, but they could feel it. A ripple of awareness spread like static. Then, a voice came over the intercom. This is your captain speaking. We apologize for the earlier interaction witnessed by some passengers. Please know that this matter is being handled appropriately. We take dignity and service seriously on this aircraft. Murmurs filled the cabin. Heather stood frozen near the cockpit. Her authority had vanished. She was now just another person facing consequences. Her polished facade cracked visibly as she turned away and stepped into the jump seat near the exit, lips pressed shut. Alana sat straighter. She hadn't fought back with words. She hadn't raised her voice. But her presence had spoken. Her brother had spoken. And now, the plane itself was listening. A soft tap came from behind. A middle-aged Latina flight attendant leaned down. "Miss Brooks," she whispered. "Can I get you anything? Water, tea, anything?" Alana looked up. "Thank you. I'm okay now." The woman smiled warmly. "You shouldn't have been treated that way. I just wanted to say, we saw. And some of us are trying to do better." Alana nodded, feeling her throat tighten. Sometimes, it's not the outfit. It's the fear behind someone else's eyes when they see you shine. And sometimes, that fear tries to punish you. But now, with the air a little lighter and justice inching closer, Alana realized, her light hadn't dimmed. It had just been reflected in every stare, every whisper, and every voice that refused to let her stand alone. As the plane began its slow descent, the atmosphere in the cabin had transformed completely. What started as a space of subtle cruelty now carried the weight of accountability. Passengers were buzzing, not with gossip, but with quiet solidarity. A ripple effect had begun. People were sharing what they witnessed, what they recorded, what they felt. Empathy moved from row to row. Alana glanced sideways and saw a father holding his daughter's hand. The girl whispered, "She looks like a superhero." The dad smiled and whispered back, "She is." But Alana didn't feel like a superhero. She still felt bruised, just not beaten. The captain came down the aisle. He stopped beside Jordan, now seated next to Alana. He crouched slightly, lowering his voice but making sure it carried to the nearby rows. "Sir, ma'am. I've spoken with the airline's corporate office mid-flight. Upon landing, the crew member in question will be debriefed and placed under internal review. I apologize for what happened. We don't stand for that kind of behavior." Jordan nodded. "Thank you for acting swiftly. Just make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else." The captain gave a tight nod, then turned to Alana. "You showed remarkable restraint. More than I would have, in your position." Alana gave a half-smile. "I've had practice." As the plane touched down, phones lit up. The story was already spreading. A clip of Jordan's confrontation had reached 10,000 views. Then 20,000. Then 50,000. Comments poured in. "This is how you show up for your sister. Black women deserve respect. Period. Every flight attendant should watch this." The aircraft taxied toward the gate. A short delay was announced as the captain made arrangements. No one complained. Everyone knew something bigger was happening. A representative from the airline boarded before passengers were allowed to deplane. She wore a crisp navy suit and an expression of urgency. She greeted Alana by name. "Miss Brooks, I'm so sorry for the way you were treated. We've spoken with your brother and with our internal security team. As of now, that crew member has been suspended pending a full investigation." Alana nodded. "I don't want revenge. Just respect." The woman looked down, humbled. "You'll have both. We've arranged a full refund for your ticket, and you'll be escorted through the terminal to avoid media, if that's your wish." Jordan stepped in. "She doesn't need to be hidden. She wasn't the problem." The woman hesitated. Then nodded. "Of course." The doors opened. Passengers began to applaud quietly, not clapping for a hero, but honoring a survivor. Alana stepped out with Jordan beside her, walking tall into the terminal. Waiting near the gate was a group of airport staff. One handed her a bouquet of white lilies. Another offered a handwritten card from a group of female employees. "Thank you for being visible. You reminded us what dignity looks like." Alana stood there, surrounded by strangers and soft flashbulbs from phones. Her story had traveled farther than the plane ever could. But through all the noise, one voice rang clearest. Jordan, leaning close to her ear. "You know what Mom would say right now?" Alana smiled. "Let me guess, they can try to break you, but baby, they'll never dim that light." Jordan laughed softly. Exactly. That night, as the clips went viral and hashtags lit up screens across the country, one phrase kept repeating. "Black woman disrespected at 30,000 feet, leaves the whole airline grounded." It wasn't the flight that changed things. It was the quiet decision not to disappear. Alana didn't start this for the spotlight. But now that the world was looking, she wasn't about to dim the light for anyone. Back at the airport lounge, Alana finally sat down in a quiet corner with her brother. Her phone vibrated non-stop, notifications, direct messages, interview requests. But she silenced it. For now, she just needed a moment. Jordan handed her a bottle of water. "No sarcasm this time," he said with a wink. She let out a soft laugh, resting her head against the back of the chair. "You always show up. Even when I don't ask. That's what big brothers do." Across the room, two teenage girls nervously approached. One of them held a phone and a notebook. "Excuse me. Are you the woman from the flight?" Alana hesitated, then nodded gently. "You're amazing," the girl said, eyes wide. "Can we take a photo with you?" Alana smiled. "Sure." As they took the picture, the other girl whispered, "Thank you for not staying quiet. My mom always tells me to blend in. But watching you, I want to stand out." Alana blinked back emotion. "Don't ever dim yourself for someone else's comfort. You hear me?" The girls nodded, then disappeared back into the terminal. Jordan leaned in. "You just changed their whole future." "I didn't do anything special," Alana said. "I just got angry and didn't run." "Exactly. That's what makes it special." Later that night, Alana sat alone in her hotel room. News anchors were already spinning headlines. Social media was flooded with reactions, some supportive, others predictably bitter. But what mattered wasn't the noise. It was the message. One post caught her attention. A young black woman had uploaded a video of herself watching the viral clip, tears in her eyes. Her caption read, "I fly to interviews dressed like Alana. I've always been scared of what people think. Not anymore." Alana sat back, hand to her mouth. This wasn't just her story anymore. It was theirs. Across the country, people began speaking up about similar experiences. Black travelers shared their own quiet humiliations on flights, in hotels, at front desks, in boardrooms. And now, they had a face to attach their stories to. A symbol. Alana never asked to be a symbol. She only ever wanted to be herself. But sometimes, being yourself in a world that demands your silence, is the most powerful act of all. The next morning, she appeared on a morning news show, poised, calm, composed. When asked what she wanted people to take away from this experience, she looked directly into the camera and said, "I didn't want to go viral. I just wanted a cup of water. What I got was a reminder that respect isn't optional, and silence is no longer survival." As the camera zoomed out and the segment ended, social media exploded again. But this time, it wasn't just a racist story. It was a turning point. And Alana? She was just getting started. A week later, Alana's inbox was flooded, not just with media requests, but with stories. Hundreds of them. Messages from flight attendants who'd been silenced when they stood up for mistreated passengers. From young black women who had always second-guessed their wardrobe before boarding a plane. From mothers who'd saved the clip to show their daughters what courage looks like. From airline staff who confessed they'd seen similar things and never knew how to stop them. She read them all. Every one. But one message in particular made her stop and reread 3 times. It was from a woman named Camille Thompson, Director of Diversity and Ethics at one of the nation's largest airlines. The message was simple. Ms. Brooks, your experience has sparked a storm of accountability in our industry. We'd be honored if you'd consider joining a special roundtable we're forming to train airline staff on unconscious bias and human dignity. Your voice is powerful. And it's needed. Alana put her phone down and stared out the window. This wasn't about a cup of water anymore. She thought back to that moment on the plane. The humiliation. The smirk. The whispers. The way the seat seemed to close in on her. But then she remembered Jordan's voice. The strength in his walk. The way silence cracked and gave way to truth. She wasn't the same woman who boarded that plane anymore. The next day, she responded to Camille's email. Yes. Let's make sure no one ever has to feel that small again. A month later, she stood at a podium in a room filled with flight instructors, policymakers, and airline executives. Her story, once confined to a 40-second TikTok, now filled the room with tension, reflection, and purpose. As she finished her speech, the crowd rose, not out of politeness, but out of recognition. Later, a young black woman in a flight attendant uniform approached her with tears in her eyes. Because of you, she whispered, I reported my supervisor yesterday. I would have stayed quiet. But not anymore. Alana embraced her. Good. Keep speaking. Outside the conference room, reporters waited. Cameras ready. Microphones stretched forward. A journalist asked, Alana, how does it feel to have started a movement? She paused. I didn't start a movement. I just stopped letting people move through me like I wasn't there. Click. Flash. Viral again. But this time, it came with change. Alana Brooks, the woman who only wanted water, had become a wave. And across America, that wave was rising. Months passed. Airlines rewrote their internal training protocols. Major carriers added new diversity and inclusion modules. Some even adopted the term, the Brooks Standard, for how to de-escalate and address bias on flights, a name Alana never asked for, but quietly honored. Meanwhile, Alana's life transformed. She was invited to speak at conferences, universities, even Congress. Her face appeared on the covers of women's magazines, not as a celebrity, but as a symbol of grace under pressure. And through it all, she stayed grounded. Jordan, ever protective, remained by her side. He still worked for the Bureau, but now found himself lecturing on bias training within federal ranks, inspired by his sister's viral stand. In one quiet moment at their childhood home in Birmingham, their mother sat between them, flipping through a scrapbook of printouts and magazine clippings. I raised 2 lions, she said proudly, tracing Alana's name on a Time magazine cover. Alana smiled, resting her head on her mom's shoulder. I didn't do anything special. You were black, beautiful, and unafraid, her mother said softly. In this world, that's revolutionary. But the work wasn't over. One afternoon, as Alana prepared to board a flight, her first since the incident, she felt her heartbeat rise. The terminal looked the same, the boarding process just as chaotic. But this time, something had changed. She noticed subtle things. A flight attendant offering water to a young passenger before takeoff. A supervisor speaking gently to an upset traveler. A black woman in first class sitting tall in a bold red dress, unapologetically herself. Alana smiled. As she boarded, the flight attendant at the door gave her a look of recognition. Not the awkward kind. The respectful kind. Welcome aboard, Miss Brooks. We've been waiting for you. Alana took her seat near the front. She gazed out the window as the plane rolled forward. Sometimes change doesn't come like thunder. Sometimes, it comes like a woman asking for water. And refusing to shrink. At 35,000 feet above the ground, Alana closed her eyes. Not to forget, but to rest. She had earned it. Because now, the skies really were watching. Somewhere mid-flight, as the hum of the engines faded into the background, a little black girl walked slowly down the aisle, holding her father's hand. She stopped next to Alana's row. The father leaned down and whispered, "Go ahead, sweetheart." The girl, maybe 7, wearing a pink backpack and sparkly sneakers, looked up shyly at Alana. "Are you, the lady from the video? The one who didn't let the mean lady win?" Alana blinked, caught off guard. "I guess I am." The girl's eyes lit up. "You're my favorite brave person." Alana smiled, warmth flooding her chest. "And you might be mine." The girl giggled and gave her a quick hug before her dad led her back to their seats. Alana leaned back, eyes misty, heart full. It wasn't about the headlines. Or the hashtags. Or even the reforms. It was this. Being seen. Being believed. Being an example to someone who needed to know they weren't alone. When the flight landed, there were no flashing cameras. No press. Just passengers slowly collecting their bags and shuffling into the terminal. Alana stepped off, her heels clicking gently against the polished floor. A mural near Gate 12 caught her eye. It was a new installation, commissioned by the airport. The painting showed a black woman standing tall beneath a sky of stars, holding a cup of water with quiet power in her eyes. Underneath, in simple gold lettering, it read, "Respect isn't requested. It's expected." Alana paused. No name. No credit. Just the message. And that was enough. She walked forward, shoulders high, her reflection briefly merging with the figure in the mural. She didn't stop to take a picture. She didn't need to. Because she wasn't walking into history. She was already part of it. Later that night, Alana found herself sitting alone on her apartment balcony, wrapped in a soft gray sweater, legs tucked beneath her. The city buzzed quietly beneath her feet, horns, laughter, sirens, life. She sipped a cup of chamomile tea, the steam curling into the cool air. Her phone buzzed again. Dozens of new notifications. She turned it face down. Tonight wasn't about what the world had to say. Tonight was about reflection. She glanced at the small framed photo resting on the side table beside her, a childhood picture of her and Jordan. He was 12, she was 6. He held her hand like he still did now, fiercely and protectively, even when no one else saw her worth. Alana smiled to herself. Not many little girls get to grow up with a real-life superhero. And yet, she had become one too. Not because she set out to be. But because she didn't look away from her own dignity. She didn't back down when others told her she was too much, too loud, too proud, too visible. She simply stood. And now, standing had moved mountains. The mural. The training reforms. The hundreds of letters from strangers who had finally found their voice. A single moment at 30,000 feet had stretched far beyond altitude. It had become a mirror, a movement, and for so many, a beginning. Alana leaned back, staring up at the stars, real ones this time, not the LED cabin lights of an airplane ceiling. Her voice broke the silence, just above a whisper. "Thank you." She wasn't sure who she was thanking, maybe the universe. Maybe herself. Maybe all the black women before her who had endured silently, making this moment possible. One star twinkled a little brighter. And in that stillness, wrapped in peace and the breath of hard-won respect, Alana finally allowed herself the simplest gift of all. She exhaled. And she slept. The next morning, sunlight streamed through Alana's curtains, warm and golden. It touched the corners of her apartment like an invitation to begin again. Her phone buzzed once more. She ignored it, walking barefoot to the kitchen and brewing fresh coffee. She wasn't in a rush today. For the first time in a long time, the day felt hers. But the soft chime of a voicemail caught her ear. She picked up her phone, expecting another request from a producer or news outlet. Instead, it was a voice she didn't recognize. Older. Gentle. Southern drawl. "Miss Brooks, you don't know me, but my name's Walter Jenkins. I'm 83 years old. My wife and I, we saw your story on the news. Been flying all our lives. Been silent most of it, too." He paused, audibly clearing his throat. "I just wanted to say, thank you. You gave my granddaughter the courage to apply to be a flight attendant. She never thought there was space for her in the sky. But now, she thinks maybe she belongs there." A long breath. "You changed that, ma'am. God bless you." Alana stood still for a long time, the phone pressed gently to her chest. She walked to the window and looked out at the city waking up, honking cars, children with backpacks, delivery trucks, the endless motion of ordinary life. She had never set out to be a catalyst. But maybe that's how change always begins, not with speeches or spotlights, but with a single, steady refusal to shrink. That flight was no longer just a memory. It had become a ripple. And Alana? She was the stone dropped in still water, calm, deliberate, unstoppable. Outside, a plane roared overhead, cutting through the clouds. Alana looked up and smiled, not with bitterness, not with rage, but with knowing. She was never grounded again. And the sky? Now it knew her name. Sometimes, the smallest moments reveal the deepest truths. Alana Brooks didn't yell. She didn't fight. She simply asked for water, and refused to shrink when dignity was denied. Her strength wasn't in shouting, but in standing tall when the world tried to make her small. This racist story reminds us that silence is no longer a safe option, not when injustice hides behind uniforms and smiles. Respect should never be conditional, and presence should never require permission. In every room, on every plane, and in every heart, there's a choice: speak up or look away. Alana chose to be seen, and in doing so, helped others find their voice. If this story moved you, don't just scroll past. Hit the like button, leave a comment sharing where you're watching from, and subscribe to support more real stories that matter. Your voice belongs here, too.